तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पुष्टिकारिणे पंचाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च सिन्धुभ्यो च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री गौर हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Last time we had discussed this verse from the 5th chapter, which says that the omnipresent God does not involve himself in the sinful or virtuous deeds of anyone. The living entities are deluded because their inner knowledge is covered by ignorance. Here Krishna basically takes no responsibility for Papa and Punya, right? And he doesn't stop there. He also mentions it is only because of ajnana living entities are covered with their inner knowledge. But that same Krishna in the 12th chapter, 6th and 7th verse, but those who dedicate all their actions to me, regarding me as the supreme goal, worshipping me and meditating on me with exclusive devotion, O Partha, I swiftly deliver them from the ocean of birth and death, for their consciousness is united with me. So in the Bhagavad Gita, we had done this long back, where apparently there are contradictory verses also. Whether it is this aspect, where Krishna is promising Arjuna to deliver, and Krishna at the same time taking no responsibility of the pious and impious activities of the living entity. Also, we see that Bahunam Janmanam Ante Jnanavan Mam Prapadante, वो भी है, and Manushanam Sahasrasya bhi hai, and the same Krishna also gives an assurance to Arjuna, Baho Jnana Tapasa Puta Madbhava Bhagata. Now, that also is there. And one of the classical is Devata Puja in the 3rd chapter, as against in the 7th and 9th chapter. The keen student of Bhagavad Gita, when he goes through the entire Gita, he will face with this, not challenges, I would say he'll be intrigued. Why would he speak like that? But somebody who is reading Bhagavad Gita based upon repetitive narratives, he will not be able to see. He will just see the narrative itself. वो गीता का विद्यार्थी नहीं बनता, वो गीता का एक बिलीवर बनता है, वो भी गीता के कई भागों को. See, there is a difference between a student and a believer. A believer has a set of ideas. So wherever he goes, he takes that set of ideas and tries to see everywhere that set of ideas. परंतु विद्यार्थी जो होता है, as much as listens to his predecessor, he also has the facility to experience his own exploration. और इसमें कोई गलती नहीं है, because the Upanishads, the Brahma Sutras, they do, they in fact urge, not allow. अनुमति नहीं, परमिशन नहीं, या स्वीकृति नहीं, rather there is urging, अथा तो ब्रह्म जिज्ञासा, इसे जिज्ञासा करो, प्रश्न करो, right? So how do you reconcile? Just like I had quoted that Madhvacharya follows commentary on Devata Puja. समाज के लिए देवता चाहिए, खुद के आत्मा के लिए अनन्य भक्ति चाहिए. And there can be no contradiction between the two. You can easily reconcile them. Because you have to stay in the society. You are part of the society. You're performing many activities with the society. Especially in the modern world, it has become more, more visible. बहुत कम लोगों को ऐसी प्राइवेसी मिलती है. So therefore, when we study Gita, जितना गहराई में जाओगे विद्यार्थी के रूप में, विद्यार्थी संशय नहीं होता है, वो चिकित्सक होता है. He is not, but he has the mentality of a doctor. चिकित्सा बुद्धि बोलते हैं ना, चिकित्सा, एनालाइज करना, डायग्नोज करना और उससे आगे बढ़ना. The purpose is to move forward only. Purpose is not to be going backward. Right. So when we study apparent contradiction, but there is no contradiction if you carefully observe. Krishna is not cancelling Purushartha. भगवान यहाँ पुरुषार्थ को किधर भी नष्ट नहीं कर रहे, उसको समाप्त नहीं कर रहे. तो पुरुषार्थ बुद्धि तो निश्चित रूप से लगेगा. अगर उसके साथ में along with that there is the devotional consciousness, the rules don't change, but your capacity increases. What is mukti? What is freedom from birth, old age, disease and death? Why would somebody like Chitraketu Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj, and in the 10th canto, I think that Sudama Brahmana, why do they pray Nacha Naka Prashtam, Nacha Parameshtyam, Narasadhipatyam, Na Sarvabhaumam? Why do they pray like that? Right? It is not simply a poetry. वो कोई केवल काल्पनिक रसयुक्त outburst नहीं है. There is also a reality. Because आप कुछ भी करना चाहते हो, anything you want to do in the mundane platform, प्रकृति के दायरे पे रहते हुए जब आप कुछ भी करना चाहते हो, वहां कुछ ना कुछ दोष तो रहेगा ही. Right? Just like again Krishna in the 3rd and 18th chapter, he explained, just like there is a smoke in the fire, you cannot say that I want only fire, no smoke. Krishna will not change the laws of the life. Right? Smoke कम हो सकता है, लेकिन स्मोक न होना ये अग्नि का संभावना नहीं है. Right? Other day I was in a program for the blind people. These are the blind leaders that come from all over India, and we were discussing, the subject was overcoming limitation of self belief. और उनके लिए सेल्फ बिलीफ क्या है? अंधत्व मिला हुआ उनको. They are blind, so naturally there is so much of tragedy in their own life. Right? Whatever you say, whether it is andhatva, whether it is handicapness, whether it is deafness, dumbness, it's a tragedy for them to understand. Everybody else can see, I can't. Everybody can speak, but I can't. तो मेरे मन में प्रश्न था कि एक्चुअली इनका अध्यात्म कैसे होता है, इनको रिलीजन के बारे में क्या फील होती है. Do they have faith in God? Do they go to the temple? Right? हाँ, सूरदास की कहानी तो है. So that question I was not able to get an answer because I couldn't get to interact with them so much. तो मैंने ये देखा कि इनका, then one of the professor was coordinating this program last 2 years. He was telling me, one of the core character of a blind person is to bump over things, bump over people, bump over things. right? It is part of their existence. If they have to move forward, they have to bump. So I begin my talk by asking them, what is more important, सुरक्षा और साहस? हमें सुरक्षित रहना महत्वपूर्ण है या साहसी बनना महत्वपूर्ण है? Almost everybody answered sahasi because sahas is a ingrained ingredient into them, because for you and me to take 4 steps from here to there is not even an issue. We don't even think about it. इधर से उधर जाना है, इधर से ग्रैंड रोड पे चल के जाना है, इट्स नॉट एन इश्यू, यू जस्ट वॉक बाय. परंतु सोचो, उनको अपने ही घर में जब खाने के बाद में हाथ धोने के लिए जाना हो, साहस करना पड़ता है, राइट? दे हैव टू बी एन एडवेंचर इन दैट. एंड इमेजिन इफ दे हैव टू गो आउट, तो स्वाभाविक रूप से उनके मन में साहस आ गया. And I was reading this, very fascinated by certain ideas of history, especially in the writings of Will Durant. वो छोटा बुक के बारे में बता रहा था. He writes very nicely, nature and history do not agree with our conceptions of good and bad. नेचर की बात कर रहे हो और इतिहास की बात कर रहे हैं, संस्कृति की बात नहीं कर रहे हैं. संस्कृति इज द एंडेवर ऑफ द ह्यूमन एग्जिस्टेंस. लेकिन जो स्वाभाविक प्रकृति और इतिहास क्या कहता है? He says they define good as that which survives and bad as that which goes under. And the universe has no prejudice in favor of Christ as against Genghis Khan. यानी कि प्रकृति और इतिहास जीसस और जंगिस खान के बीच में भेद नहीं करती है. दोनों को भी संघर्ष करना पड़ेगा अस्तित्व को बचा के रखने के लिए, राइट? सो दैट एस्पेक्ट ऑफ संघर्ष कृष्णा डज नॉट take away from the living entity because you become surrendered to him. He does not take away the consequences what you are supposed to experience. यहां रिलेशनशिप भगवान के साथ में चेतना का है, राइट? इट इज द रिलेशनशिप ऑफ कॉन्शियसनेस. इट इज नॉट द रिलेशनशिप ऑफ पुरुषार्थ. पुरुषार्थ में भगवान हस्तक्षेप नहीं करते, जैसे उन्होंने अर्जुन के लिए भी नहीं किया था, राइट? Very rarely as an avatar, sometimes he does it when he is actually playing Leela in the plane of earthly planet. Otherwise you are on your own. समस्या किधर है? समस्या एक्शन से नहीं है, समस्या उसके परिणाम को हैंडल करने में क्षमता में. Now this people accepted the blindness, साहस भी करने का प्रयास कर रहे हैं, राइट? परंतु जिनके पास आंखें है, जिनके पास हाथ पैर है, जिनके पास बोलने की क्षमता है, जिनके पास सुनने की क्षमता है, जिसके पास स्पर्श करने की क्षमता है, राइट, स्पेस की क्षमता है, दे हैव एवरीथिंग व्हाट दे डिजायर. लेकिन फिर भी उनके अंदर रिडंडेंसी आ जाती है, क्योंकि सुरक्षा का एक one of the limitation of suraksha, one of the disadvantage of stability is complacency, redundancy, right? I think very interestingly, when I was reading one of the articles of Swami Vivekananda, just to see what he says about bhakti, काफी पहला पढ़ा था मैं. उन्होंने एक प्रश्न उठाया था. I had shared that with Maharaj. he says the disadvantage of devotion is that you become complacent. And he gives the example of Bengal only. जहां पुरुषार्थ के प्रति आप आलस्य दिखाने लगते हो, एंड देयरफॉर भगवत गीता या कोई भी उपनिषद, कोई पुराणों को पढ़ते समय यू कैनॉट हैव अ फिक्स्ड नरेटिव and approach it, because that is what you will see. What is the fixed narrative? Krishna will take care. So how will you see this verse from the 5th chapter? Right? How will you see the verse in the 18th chapter? कि बाबा कोई भी कर्म करो उसमें कुछ ना कुछ दोष रहेगा. How will you see in the 18th chapter where Krishna talks about giving up things because it is inconvenience? But we already have the superimposition of why anything should be done. It's a mundane thing. तो इसलिए विद्यार्थी बनना गीता का, इवन भक्त बनने के बाद भी, is very fruitful. No, very important for us to understand that. ये नरेटिव नहीं है, ये क्लैरिटी है. तो पुरुषार्थ के साथ में यहां भगवान ने हस्तक्षेप नहीं किया, कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस के साथ में भगवान ने हस्तक्षेप नहीं किया है, परंतु आपके चेतना में वो निश्चित रूप से हस्तक्षेप करते, प्रवेश करते. He enters into your consciousness, right? He makes you courageous, right? फिर एक बार करेज आ गया कुछ आगे करने के लिए, with the right strategy, offering the strategy also as a offering to Krishna, the consequences of the strategy offering to Krishna, the success of it offering to Krishna, and the failure too, right? Failure में ये नहीं कहेंगे कि हाँ कृष्णा accept this also as your mercy. ये नहीं कि आपने फेल क्यों किया मेरे को. अगर आपको वो काम करने से कुछ परिणाम हो जाता है, you did some purushartha and the consequences of that you are belittled, you face some challenging situation, there also you don't question Krishna, why like this? Last, like Yudhishthira Maharaj did not question the hellish consequences. He made that as a choice to stay with the Pandavas, कि मैं यहाँ नरक में रहूंगा मेरे भाइयों के साथ, मेरे पत्नी के साथ. He did not make it as a force, but he made that as a choice. Right? प्रश्न नहीं उठा है. That is what Krishna is writing in this chapter. It is not that I chose Krishna, but I don't choose the consequences of my surrounding. वो तो बदलने वाला नहीं है. प्रकृति के जो सराउंडिंग के बारे में विल डुरैंट ने क्लियरली बोल दिया, ऐसा ही रहेगा. आप जीसस के फॉलोअर हो या जंगीज खान के फॉलोअर है, प्रकृति के नियम नहीं बदलेंगे. आग लगेगा तो जलेगा ही, whether it is yours or mine, doesn't matter. और आपने बोल देना आग लगाने का नहीं, आग लगाने से पूरा you get implicated. That is more like a Buddhistic philosophy than the Vedanta philosophy. In Buddha's philosophy, he says, don't be grateful. The core hardcore जो बुद्धा का जो ज्ञान मार्ग है, तथाकथित ज्ञान मार्ग, it abhors relationships, because relationships, good or bad, what does it do? It creates bondage. अभी काफी चेंज कर दिया है काफी लोगों ने. अभी just recently I saw one, quoting, I don't know where they quoted Buddha saying that, friendship is half of our relationship, or with nirvana ke liye. I think his cousin told that, but Buddha said no, not half, it is complete. परंतु अगर कोर कॉन्सेप्ट को देखोगे, कोर कॉन्सेप्ट में कृतज्ञता विपश्यने वाला है लोग, they don't teach gratitude, because if you offer gratitude, it is binding. न्यूट्रल रहो, प्रयास करते हो लोग, न किसी की निंदा न किसी की स्तुति, बिकॉज निंदा में भी उतना ही परिणाम है जितना स्तुति में. फेयर इनफ, राइट? इफ यू अप्रिशिएट, इफ यू गिव समथिंग टू समबडी, then you're obliging them. to, if not anything, at least the word thank you. तो जो अच्छे कर्म का सर्कल चालू कर दिया आपने, you may call it as a virtuous circle, but still it is a circle, it is moving, it complicates your life. Or a vicious circle, जहां द्वेष, जहां निंदा, जहां ingratitude है. He said ultimately both are circles, and both circles create a consequences. So better don't start the circle only. वो wheel को ही बंद कर दो. But this is not the Vedanta philosophy. Krishna told Arjuna, you are not this body, but he identified him with the body. He told him that ultimately everything leads to death. Right? 2.13 to 2.30 भगवान ने आत्म तत्व का ज्ञान दिया, मृत्यु अटल है कहा, and then after saying all that, and therefore my dear Arjuna, I urge you to fight this battle. So the Vedanta philosophy also finds out limitations of the creation. The Buddhist philosophy also finds the limitation of creation, and it concludes, the Buddhism concludes, no relationship. किसी के साथ में कोई संबंध नहीं होना चाहिए. Vedanta, Krishna's philosophy says, because it is creates a consequences, it's okay. You have a higher purpose. अग्नि में थोड़ा धूल रहेगा तो करो, क्योंकि ये प्रकृति का नियम है, जीव का स्वभाव है, क्रियाशीलता. Right? Even the element in our chakra seminar, this was the principle I was discussing with them, the blind people. Earth element क्या डिनोट करता है? अर्थ एलिमेंट डिनोट स्टेबिलिटी. मेरे पास एक क्षेत्र आ गया, मेरे पास घर आ गया. Somebody explained, I was reading an article, that आधुनिक समाज ने लोगों को घर दिया है परंतु लैंड छीन के लिया हुआ है. You are happy with a 600 square foot house at the cost of losing 10 acres of land, 15 acres of land. He said before people were land holder, now they are only box holder. एक छोटा सा बॉक्स है. लेकिन वो बॉक्स में आने के बाद में जिसके पास घर नहीं है, लैंड होने पर भी विचलित होता है, लेकिन घर आते ही वो सुरक्षित महसूस करता है, और इतना सुरक्षित महसूस करने लगता है, the feeling of stability, it becomes so strong and so high. And the disadvantage of stability is of complacence, redundancy. जाने दो, कौन करेगा, क्यों बाहर जाने का. राइट? पहले हम देखते गांव में घर खुल जाता था सुबह. Once you are up in the morning, the door is open and it would open till evening hours. Evening में भी बंद नहीं करते थे, थोड़ा धुआं लगा देते ताकि मच्छर वगैरह नहीं आना चाहिए. रात के सोने समय ही दरवाजा बंद होता था. We all grew up like that, right? But the privacy का भूत इन्हें इतना ये कर दिया. Like in the big cities, wherever there are apartment buildings, even having a security, you want to close your door at your neighbor. All of us दरवाजा बंद रखते हैं. Right? जहां बंद दरवाजा है वहां खुले दिमाग कैसे हो सकता है? Not possible. Right? Prejudice अपने आप आ जाता है. तो इसलिए ये समझना बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण है कि पुरुषार्थ में परिणाम होगा, और उस परिणाम को हैंडल करने की क्षमता भगवान देते हैं. इसलिए इवन दो the conclusion of present life, we are not talking about life itself, right? हमारे लिए life eternal है, इसलिए death is not important, heaven is not important, hell is not important, eternality is important. तो इसलिए इस जीवन में मृत्यु आने पर भी आपको पुरुषार्थ करना है, और पुरुषार्थ के परिणाम को, पुरुषार्थ के स्ट्रैटेजी को सब कुछ कृष्ण के लिए अर्पण करना है. नॉट ओनली वन एस्पेक्ट ऑफ not doing we offer as offering to Krishna, rather than all other aspect of our activities. And therefore what Will Durant says, प्रकृति ने वैसे ही बनाया. If you want to survive, you have to be fit, and fit will be the one who create the legacy. And in another write-up he says, when you studied the history of biology, बायोलॉजी को देखोगे तो क्या कहती है बायोलॉजी? बायोलॉजी यही कहती है, कंपटीशन, राइट, कंपटीशन इज द रियलिटी ऑफ एग्जिस्टेंस. मैंने भीष्मदेव को उदाहरण दिया था कि एक बच्चा जब जन्म लेता है और दूसरा जब आ जाता है, at some point of time, for some time, if you don't give the culture all the time, तो सेकेंड बच्चों के प्रति पहले बच्चे का थोड़ा सा खुन्नस होता है कि she or he has come to take away my resources, the exclusive affection of the mother, the exclusive resources given by the father, right? उसको थोड़ा खुन्नस आ जाता है. तो प्रकृति उसको कॉम्पिटिटर समझती है, संस्कार उसको संबंध सिखाता है. संस्कार इज द हार्ड वर्क, प्रकृति इज नेचुरल. Please understand this, very important. But we have to study Prakriti also. The Prakriti is a competition. इसको आप हटा नहीं सकते, मिटा नहीं सकते हो. Then second is Prakriti shows selection against rejection, right? आपको सिलेक्ट करना पड़ेगा. विवाह के लिए सिलेक्ट करते हो, कॉलेज के लिए सिलेक्ट करते हो, हर चीज के लिए सिलेक्ट करते हो, कैंसिल करते हो. But selection can only happen if there is an abundance of choices. So the third principle says Prakriti does not have any sensitivity for those people who do not breed. If you don't breed, you will be extinct. Now it is not only talking about biological breeding, बच्चों को पैदा करो, breeding ideas, breeding resources. And he explains, he says Prakriti, the nature, has the prerequisite for quality is quantity. Very interesting. Prerequisite for quality is quantity. भगवान ने छान छान कर राइट पांडवों को बनाया ताकि धर्म की स्थापना करने के लिए वो लड़ते रहे, राइट. So therefore, whether it is 5th chapter, whether it is 12th chapter, if you read carefully as a Vidyarthi, you will find such a fine line harmony. Harmony always happens in a fine line. The distinction, the separation happens in a very gross way. Black and white, good and bad. परंतु हार्मनी का जो थ्रेड है वो बहुत सटल होता है. And you can see that neither the 5th chapter cancels Purushartha, neither the 12th chapter cancels the Purushartha, but on the level of Chetana, on the level of consciousness, Krishna makes you courageous because they offered everything to him on a conscious level. Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Anybody wants to go ahead?
Yes, you can.
Prabhuji, the last point that you said about, Prakriti has affection only for someone who breeds and increases. So the same thing applies even to a spiritual organization, right? As in numbers, only when they increase, then you get quality. I mean, that thing is applicable here as well, right?
As an institution, yes, but as an individual, अध्यात्म में आपका जर्नी है ना बहुत ही, it's like अध्यात्म is not connected to collectiveness. As an institution, yes, you need a पढ़े लिखे लोग आ जाएंगे, अच्छे लोग आ जाएंगे, but that has nothing to do with quality in regards to your discovery of spirituality. You'll find good people. Goodness in based what? उनका their capacity to function, to produce more result, to bring more people. अध्यात्म का जो संस्कार, जीव का संस्कार जो होता है, अपना लेकर आएगा, उसको अगर अच्छा ट्रेनिंग मिलेगा, then they will keep growing. Or their growth is based upon their hardcore belief rather than being a vidyarthi. Yes, from that perspective, as an institution, yes, you breed more, then you get quality more. That's a principle for anybody and everybody. देखो ना, बीजेपी का कैडर देखो, द वर्किंग मशीन देखो, उनका काम करने का तरीका देखो. They're getting Annamalai, they're getting Tejasvi Surya, they're getting Yogi Adityanath, right? Congress is becoming depleted with followers, so जो है वो भी निकल रहा है. कितना एक, I would 100% recommend to read this book of Story of History. It's profound. मतलब you can't argue. He talks about the principle and principle के लिए story देते. But if we start discussing about, he begins with this only. He said history is imagination and mostly prejudice. फिर then the Aryan invasion theory हो गया, वो सब को जो हो गया. There you can debate, अरे this is what he is not saying right one. उसमें आप debate कर सकते हो. But principle of it, इसको तो आप avoid ही नहीं कर सकते हो. Nature में कोई ये नहीं.
World over, currently, there is a lot of worry about the fertility rate of people. You may be knowing that.
Yes.
The numbers are not there. So they are
numbers are not.
Yeah.
बहुत बड़ा कम है. He says, yes, if you don't, that aspect also he writes.
Yeah.
If you are not fertile, if you are not producing, then you don't, Prakriti has no kindness towards you. He said there is no big difference between barbarism and civilization in the breeding concept.
Yeah, one more point, Prabhuji, you always talk about Gita, na? So I was just reading in the first canto, second chapter, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur makes a comment, because the whole argument in the Bhagavatam is how dharma has to be done only for increasing our attraction to Krishna. So he raises the point, then should ordinary dharma be followed, varnashram, etc. So he makes one comment which I found interesting. He says that in current Bengali society, he says that our Vaishnavas are practicing their dharma, just for loka vichar perspective, but they may not have so much faith that they want those results, but still they are doing it for loka vichar. He makes that comment, which is like a historically context, na? Because you always say, right, that in Bengal devotees, they were doing their regular varnashram dharma. So he says it's from loka vichar, but they may not really aspire for those fruits, whether it is Pitra Yagya or whatever, but they will do it like that, he says.
Yeah, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur talks about Bengali करके
Yeah. He says Purva Deshe. So the understanding is that he's talking about the Eastern devotees, like that.
Okay.
Because we generally feel that Bhagavatam means how much that varnashram should be integrated, like that, or whether your dharma, like Shraddha, Pitra dharma, all these things, how much should be done in that context. And
also, again, if you see historically also, that Bengal was heavily inflicted with the Islamic invasion. तो उसके कारण जो गिल्ट जागृत होता है, वो गिल्ट को दूर कैसे करोगे? No, the bhakti principle is extremely very good to help you overcome that guilt. नहीं हो रहा है तो बाबा, and that is not only bhakti principle just as a vyavhar, it is also the principle of bhakti. If you are actually devout in that level, so even if you don't get to do, then you don't have to feel guilty. Don't give it up. But if it is not happening, उसके लिए आप गिल्ट करने की आवश्यकता नहीं. आदमी कुछ रिचुअल न करने के कारण वो इतना गिल्टी हो जाता है, वो डिसफंक्शनल हो जाता है. सो डिवोशनल वैष्णव प्रिंसिपल गेव दैट कॉन्फिडेंस इन पीपल. बाबा नहीं हुआ ना, इसके पीछे क्लेश मत लो, जाने दो. लेकिन आगे जब ये करने को अवसर मिला, दैट बिकेम लाइक चले क्यों करने का, उसकी आवश्यकता नहीं. There is no. So when you have the facility, you should do it. When you don't have the facility, you still feel confidence ki आगे बढ़ो. Don't worry. So Bengal, South India did not experience that. इसलिए पॉलिटिकल रियलिटी भी समझना बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट. जितना इन्वेजन बंगाल में हुआ, स्पेशली नॉर्थ में हुआ, if you see Punjabi culture, on that side of the Sindhi culture, वो ये सब कुछ, there it was not that it was not there. Just like this one Sri Vaishnav, I think his name is Rajendra Ji Maharaj or somebody else. He spoke about night marriages. बोले नाइट मैरिज क्या है, व्हाट इज दिस नाइट मैरिज. उन्होंने बोला ये तो बहुत बेकार है एकदम. He quoted scripture, but then in those time, timing became an important principle to survive. अगर दिन में शादी करोगे तो आपको उठा के ले जाते, तो वहां के लोगों ने एडजस्ट करके बोला रात को करो. राइट. Every time is auspicious if you're going to invite Lord Narayan. But still that same Lord Narayan through Panchanga, he has said this is the most auspicious. So South India was able to follow that quite religiously. While see, you cannot say you are a pure devotee because you connected to one particular sampradaya which talks about Madhurya being highest. That does not automatically make you a pure devotee. Right? Your ideas don't make you a pure devotee, rather your practices make you pure devotee. So there are hundreds of such devout Vaishnavas in South India also. Right? But जब भी यज्ञ की बात आई, Damodar Dulal, you are on. So they also followed the rituals, and while also be remain devout, worshipper of Lord Narayan. तो लेकिन ये जो है ये बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण. नॉर्थ में ये तो बहुत बड़ा समस्या है.
Anyone else?
Actually, if you go to north, most of the time they quote Tulsi Ramayana only. That is the reference point more than Valmiki Ramayana. They don't have a problem with Valmiki Ramayana, but generally everyone quotes Tulsi Ramayana. और उधर से वो आ गया ना, in north में, including somebody like even Radha Govind Maharaj doesn't accept Uttar Ramayana as the authentic thing. That Sita's banishment, all that is not accepted. But in South, absolutely nobody rejects the Uttar Ramayana because the Tulsi Ramayana is only a reference point. It is not the core authority. इसलिए social structure also has the power to influence your belief system. So any other? We'll stop here.
Anybody else? Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay, Hare Krishna.